Have you ever experienced that moment when your ordinary workday transforms into something extraordinary? When the mundane office environment suddenly becomes the setting for an unexpected adventure? If you've enjoyed this story, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more captivating tales that blend everyday life with unexpected twists. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as I stared at my computer screen, the quarterly report numbers blurring before my eyes. Another Tuesday at Meridian Financial Solutions, unremarkable in every way. Until it wasn't. The first indication that something was amiss came when Jessica from HR rushed past my cubicle, her usually composed demeanor replaced by wide-eyed panic. Then came the hushed whispers, spreading through the office like wildfire. I dismissed it all, determined to finish my work before the 5 p.m. deadline. That's when I felt it, a presence beside my desk. Before I could turn, there was movement at my feet. I froze as my boss, Richard Harrington, the stern and meticulous CEO of Meridian Financial, dropped to his hands and knees and crawled under my desk. His tailored suit collected dust from the rarely vacuumed carpet as he folded his 6-foot frame into the cramped space. "Act natural," he whispered urgently, his voice strained. "Just keep working." My fingers hovered over the keyboard, suddenly forgetting every Excel formula I'd ever known. How exactly does one act natural with their boss hiding under their desk? The absurdity of the situation might have made me laugh if not for the unmistakable fear in Richard's eyes. I'd been working at Meridian for 3 years, and in that time, Richard had never so much as smiled at me. He was known throughout the company as the machine, efficient, calculating, and seemingly devoid of human emotion. Yet here he was, his perfectly combed silver hair now disheveled, his tie loosened, breathing heavily beneath my desk. "Mr. Harrington," I whispered, pretending to reach for something in my drawer, "what's happening?" "3 men in black suits just entered the building," he replied, his voice barely audible. "They're not who they claim to be. If they ask, you haven't seen me today." My heart raced as I straightened up, attempting to type coherently while my boss huddled by my feet. Through my peripheral vision, I noticed 3 men in dark suits speaking with our receptionist. They didn't look particularly threatening, more like accountants than assassins, but something in their rigid posture sent a chill down my spine. I had always been invisible at Meridian. As a financial analyst, I blended into the background, attending meetings where no one remembered my name and eating lunch alone while scrolling through my phone. Now, suddenly, I was at the center of whatever drama was unfolding. The irony wasn't lost on me. The tallest of the 3 men approached the cubicle area, his eyes scanning each workspace methodically. I kept my head down, focusing on my screen while trying to appear engrossed in spreadsheets that now seemed utterly meaningless. "Excuse me," the man said, stopping at my desk. His voice was smooth, practiced. "I'm looking for Richard Harrington. Have you seen him today?" I felt Richard tense beneath the desk, his shoulder pressing against my knee. In that moment, I made a decision that would change everything. "Mr. Harrington?" I looked up, feigning confusion. "He called in sick this morning. Something about food poisoning from that new sushi place downtown." The lie flowed easily, surprising me with its detail. The man studied my face, searching for any sign of deception. I held his gaze, channeling every ounce of indifference I could muster. After what felt like an eternity, he nodded and moved on to the next cubicle. When the men finally left the office, the collective tension dissipated like air from a punctured balloon. Richard emerged from under my desk, his usually impeccable appearance now rumpled and dusty. He straightened his tie, a gesture so familiar it seemed almost comical given the circumstances. "Thank you," he said simply, his voice carrying a warmth I'd never heard before. "You may have just saved my life." Those words marked the beginning of a story far more complex than I could have imagined. Richard Harrington wasn't just the cold, calculating CEO I'd thought him to be. He was a man with secrets, a past that had finally caught up to him, and now, whether I wanted it or not, I was involved. That evening, as the office emptied and the cleaning crew began their rounds, Richard invited me to his corner office, a space I'd only glimpsed from afar. The view of the city at sunset was spectacular, the kind of vista that reminded you why people endured soul-crushing jobs in high-rise buildings. "I owe you an explanation," Richard said, pouring 2 glasses of amber liquid from a crystal decanter. He handed one to me, the glass cool against my palm. Though I'm not sure where to begin. I took a small sip, the whiskey burning pleasantly down my throat. The beginning is usually a good place. A smile flickered across his face, another first. "The beginning," he repeated, gazing out at the city lights now twinkling in the dusk. "The beginning was 20 years ago, when I was someone else entirely." Richard's story unfolded like a thriller novel. Before founding Meridian Financial, he had worked for a shadowy government agency, analyzing financial patterns to track international criminals. His expertise had helped bring down several major crime syndicates, making him powerful enemies in the process. I laughed at the unexpected compliment. "I didn't think you noticed me at all." "I notice everything," he replied. "It's how I've stayed alive." On the 5th day, as I arrived at work, I found a small envelope on my desk. Inside was a key and an address I didn't recognize, along with a note in Richard's precise handwriting: "Tonight. 8 p.m. Come alone." The address led me to a modest apartment in a quiet neighborhood across town. Using the key, I entered to find Richard packing a single suitcase, his movements efficient and practiced. "This is goodbye, then," I said, leaning against the doorframe. He nodded, not looking up. "For now. But I have a proposition for you." Richard explained that he needed someone he could trust to be his eyes and ears at Meridian, someone who could alert him if the men in suits returned, someone who could help him protect what he'd built. It would mean a promotion, he said. Director of Special Projects. A significant raise, more responsibility. But also risk. I considered his offer, weighing the comfortable predictability of my current position against the dangerous excitement of what he proposed. In that moment, I realized how tired I was of being invisible, of days blending into one another without distinction. "I'm in," I said, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. Richard smiled, a real smile that transformed his face. "I was hoping you'd say that." He handed me a small device that looked like an ordinary flash drive. "Everything you need to know is on here. Memorize it, then destroy it." As we said our goodbyes, an unexpected emotion tightened my chest. In less than a week, this man had gone from being my intimidating boss to something closer to a friend, or perhaps a mentor. The thought that I might never see him again left me with a profound sense of loss. "Be careful," I said as he picked up his suitcase. "You too," he replied, his expression serious. "Remember what I taught you. Trust no one completely. Question everything. And always have a backup plan," I finished for him, smiling despite the heaviness in my heart. The next morning, the office was abuzz with the news of Richard's sudden sabbatical. An interim CEO was appointed, Janet Keller, the longtime CFO who had always seemed to be Richard's right hand. I was called into her office before lunch. "Congratulations on your promotion," Janet said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Richard spoke highly of your abilities." "Thank you," I replied, maintaining the composed demeanor I'd practiced with Richard. "I'm looking forward to the challenge." "I'm sure you are." She slid a folder across her desk. "Your first assignment as Director of Special Projects. I'll need your analysis by Friday." As I took the folder, our eyes met, and I felt a flicker of uncertainty. Did Janet know about Richard's past? Was she ally or adversary in this new world I'd entered? The weeks that followed were a delicate balance of my new responsibilities and my secret communication with Richard. True to his word, he monitored Meridian from afar, guiding me through the political landscape of upper management and helping me navigate potential threats. The men in suits returned twice more, each time leaving empty-handed. With each visit, my confidence grew. I was no longer the invisible analyst but a key player in a dangerous game, one I was surprisingly good at. 3 months after Richard's disappearance, I received a text from an unknown number: coffee. Tomorrow. 2 p.m. The place with the terrible scones you like. My heart raced as I read the message. Only Richard knew about my weakness for the objectively awful scones at the little cafe across from Meridian. He was back in the city, risking everything for reasons I couldn't fathom. The cafe was crowded when I arrived, the afternoon rush providing perfect cover. I spotted him immediately, though he looked different, beard grown out, hair dyed a darker shade, glasses changing the shape of his face. To anyone else, he would be unrecognizable, but I knew the precise way he held himself, the alertness in his posture. "You shouldn't be here," I said as I sat across from him, keeping my voice low. "It's too dangerous." Richard's eyes, unchanged despite his altered appearance, studied my face. "Some risks are worth taking." He pushed a small package toward me. I needed to deliver this personally. "What is it?" "Evidence," he replied. "The men who came looking for me. They're not working for who I thought. This is bigger than personal vendetta, it's about Meridian itself." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. "The company is a target?" Richard nodded grimly. "Not just the company. The clients. Someone is using Meridian to access financial information on some very powerful people. I built the security systems myself, but they're being dismantled from the inside." "Janet," I whispered, the pieces suddenly falling into place. The strange assignments she'd given me, the new security protocols, her insistence on reviewing all client communications. "I need proof before making accusations," Richard said. "That's where you come in." The next 2 weeks were the most stressful of my life. By day, I continued my role as Janet's trusted director, all while gathering evidence of her systematic dismantling of Meridian's security infrastructure. By night, I compiled the information for Richard, each piece adding to a disturbing picture of corporate espionage on a massive scale. The breaking point came when I discovered Janet had scheduled a server maintenance that would leave all client data vulnerable for a 6-hour window, coincidentally during a time when most of the IT staff would be attending a mandatory training session off-site. "It's happening tomorrow," I told Richard during our secure call. "Whatever they're planning, it's tomorrow night." His voice was calm, steadying. "We're ready. The authorities have been briefed. Just stick to the plan." The plan seemed simple enough. I would appear to leave with the rest of the staff but return to monitor the server room. Richard would be nearby with a team of federal agents, waiting for my signal. All I had to do was document the breach as it happened, providing the final evidence needed to bring Janet and her accomplices to justice. Of course, nothing is ever that simple. I returned to Meridian after dark, using the security badge Richard had provided that wouldn't trigger the normal alerts. The building was eerily quiet, the usual hum of activity replaced by silence. I made my way to the server room, heart pounding so loudly I was certain it would give me away. The door to the server room was ajar, the first sign something was wrong. According to our intelligence, Janet's team shouldn't arrive for another hour. I hesitated, then pushed the door open wider, peering into the dimly lit space. Janet stood in the center of the room, surrounded by servers, her face illuminated by the blue glow of a laptop screen. She wasn't alone. The 3 men in suits, the same ones who had come looking for Richard months ago, stood nearby, their expressions grim. "You can come in," Janet called, not looking up from her screen. "We've been expecting you." My blood ran cold as I stepped into the room, mind racing through escape scenarios. Had Richard's plan been compromised? Was I walking into a trap? "How did you know?" I asked, playing for time as I subtly pressed the panic button on my phone, the signal for Richard and his team to move in. Janet finally looked up, her smile cold. "You're good, I'll give you that. But not as good as you think. Richard trained you well, but he trained me first." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. You worked with him. Before Meridian. She nodded, closing her laptop. Partners, actually. Until he decided to play hero and turn state's evidence. He got a new identity, a fresh start. I got 5 years in federal prison. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Janet wasn't dismantling security to steal client data, she was setting a trap for Richard. The entire operation was bait to draw him out of hiding. He's not coming, I lied, desperately hoping the federal agents were already in position. I'm working alone. Janet laughed, the sound echoing off the server racks. Richard Harrington, leave his precious company in the hands of a junior analyst? Please. He's nearby, monitoring everything. Probably has a team of agents ready to swoop in. She checked her watch. But they'll be too late. One of the suited men stepped forward, drawing a gun from his jacket. My heart hammered against my ribs as I realized I might not make it out of this room alive. I'm curious, Janet said, her tone conversational, as if we were discussing quarterly projections over coffee. What did he tell you about me? About why he disappeared? That he was protecting Meridian, I replied, my mouth dry. Protecting the clients. She shook her head, almost pitying. Always the noble one. Did he mention that Meridian was built with money from the very criminals he helped put away? That his hands are just as dirty as mine? Before I could respond, the lights in the server room suddenly went out, plunging us into darkness save for the blinking LEDs on the servers. A moment later, emergency lights bathed the room in red, and alarms began to blare throughout the building. Chaos erupted. The suited men moved toward the door, guns drawn. Janet grabbed her laptop, shouting orders that were lost in the cacophony of alarms. I took advantage of the confusion, ducking behind a server rack and making my way toward the emergency exit. I had almost reached the door when a hand grabbed my arm, pulling me into the shadow of a tall server cabinet. I nearly screamed until I recognized Richard's face in the red emergency light. This way, he whispered.